Now I am joined by Ring of Honor lead announcer Ian Riccaboni. Ian, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing really well, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You've got kind of a fascinating trend how you've become that. Have you become the voice of Ring of Honor? For so long it was Kevin Kelly. Now it's Ian Riccaboni. You've worked with a host of different announcers in your time at Ring of Honor too. Tell me, what was your reaction to being told that you were going to be the lead guy moving forward?
Well, I'll tell you, it just about knocked my socks off. I remember I was in a taxi heading to O'Hare Airport, and I was heading back from a work trip, and I knew I was about to go to Texas. We were about to go to Dallas and San Antonio, and it was interesting because I'd heard some things that, okay, you may be calling these shows, and I didn't know for sure. But then I received a call from one of our producers who had kind of filled me in on what was going on, and said that Kevin would not be our full-time announcer, and he had asked me if I'd be interested in becoming the host of Ring of Honor Wrestling. So I had always had a timeline in my head. Things had always seemed to move a little fast once I got involved, but never this quickly. And in my head, I was ready to give it maybe 5 years or 10 years. And I really hold Kevin in high regard. He's a friend. He's a mentor, somebody that's been a combination of a father figure, a big brother to me. But when I was asked that day, it was a cold January day in Chicago. And I'm from Philadelphia, so I was even kind of out of my element there. I was just excited to get home. But I couldn't believe what I was hearing as I was getting ready to go home. So I said yes right away, because that's, all of the time and the effort and the energy and the reps and all the time, the effort and the energy that Kevin had put into me and that our producers had put into me. I said yes right away because I felt confident and comfortable I could grow into the role. But of course, once you accept something that big, just a little bit of human nature, a little bit of doubt starts to set in. Can I really do this? Can I execute at the level back at HDNet? So those types of things started to run through my head, but I got pretty confident pretty quickly. I think I've had something like 16 different partners on television at any given time, or 13 partners and 16 combinations, or something wild. So it's been fun. I'm really excited, speaking of Chicago, to have a more steady partner. Colt Cabana has been that guy, and BJ when Colt's been unavailable. So I've lucked out into two really good regular partners.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what you thought about Colt Cabana moving into that role. It seems like one that he has taken to very well. He's natural. I mean, of course, he had his podcast forever, so his voice, most wrestling fans have heard it one way or another. So what's that been like?
Well, at first, I'm going to be honest. Colt is so charismatic. He's so funny. He's so energetic that it can be at first to work with, because I wrestler as part of Ring of Honor's history, a two-time tag champion. He was there at the end of 2002 and then progressed and meant so much to Ring of Honor. And when he came back, whether it be 2010 or 2016 when he made his shocking return, Colt was always one of those guys that I really held in high esteem. And then, of course, with the Art of Wrestling podcast, such great interviews and such great dialogue he has with wrestlers, he really feels he makes it feel like you're joining him in a conversation with one of his friends. So it was kind of intimidating from that perspective, because my first instinct was, well, what if if Colt is such a professional, Colt is so great, we have to make this work. There's no way it won't. And so when we jumped in, it was so nice to be with someone like Colt, because Colt not only get the rest of making your listener feel like you're a part of what's happening and that you're in the conversation. So I really appreciate having Colt there, because as much of a nice safety blanket Kevin was those first couple months, transitioning to working with just Colt and even just BJ has been incredible, because Colt really understands broadcasting from almost a subliminal level. He's a great communicator. He's a great talker. I'm really excited about the chemistry we formed together. And the only comment that I have there, the only negative that we've heard, I think, is that sometimes we sound alike. And I think, he's from Chicago. I'm from Allentown, Pennsylvania. So not quite the Midwest, but almost that Midwestern accent. And so the differentiator, if you're ever listening at home, is how he pronounces the word Philadelphia. He pronounces it very quickly. It's almost Philadelphia. Whereas I stretch.
It's funny because you kind of sounded like him as you said that.
I think we're, we're roommates on the road a bit now. So just an amazing guy. And he's been really cool too. In a couple of early interviews, once I got the role, I talked about how much Kevin had helped. But Colt really helps from a different perspective and kind of a different level, helping me get into the mind of what a wrestler might be thinking in a match, what a wrestler might be thinking maybe in an interview. And he also really kind of understands it from, again, that almost subliminal communication level where he's just really good at making folks feel welcome and just making them feel like they're a part of something. And so working with Colt, that's the thing that I hope I learn the most and kind of get through osmosis the most, because that's why guys like Lance Russell were so revered. And even Bobby Heenan, like the grandfather of professional wrestling, or maybe the uncle. Well, Bobby Heenan was kind of that, almost like the weird uncle everybody had, with the sense of humor and the dirty jokes and he had a little bit of a mean streak. So those guys were so relatable and so easy for fans to really enjoy that. I think that's what I hope to get from Colt as our team progresses.
Now, initially, when you were revealed to be the host of Ring of Honor, there were rumors that Ring of Honor and Kevin Kelly were done working together, but he came back in briefly, like for, I think, maybe a taping or something like that. What was that like working with him after that? Because I'm pretty sure everybody knew that you would be the guy moving forward.
Kevin was nothing but gracious. Kevin, in fact, I'll use this example at the very first paper. It was 15th anniversary in Las Vegas, and originally the production setup had Colt, Kevin, and myself. And Kevin really went out of his way, to say that, hey, Ian's going to be the lead broadcaster on this pay-per-view. Ian needs to be in the middle so that the folks at home get to see who is kind of quarterbacking this broadcast. And from there on, Kevin had been the same kind of way. The next night we did a TV taping together, he and I. After that, Baltimore, Colt, and I called together. But then the last War of the Worlds tour in North America, it was the three of us. And again, Kevin made sure I was in the middle. Kevin made sure that I was the one kind of directing traffic. And in between matches or in between episodes of television, he'd give me some breakdowns and some pointers. And it just really in New Japan. So I'm really thankful that I actually had that transition period, because it's one thing to kind of learn on the job, but it's another to have someone that you trust and that's your mentor and someone that helped you get to where you are to really help you deliver kind of real time in your first couple goes.
So is there anybody, without having to name names, you've kind of had to squeeze blood from a stone with? Because that happens sometimes.
Oh, in terms of commentary or?
Yeah.
Oh, I think the biggest thing is if I see somebody on a production sheet that is slated to do commentary, I make sure I get with them and I make sure that they understand the background of the match, and I make sure that they understand the stakes of the match at a very base level. And a lot of times, if it's somebody that maybe hasn't done a whole lot of commentary, I'll use the example of Cheeseburger, who was very, very good in our Future of Honor Friday bout that we called. Cheeseburger hasn't done a whole lot of commentary, but he was actually very, very good, in my opinion, because he knew the stakes of the match between Will Ferraro, Rhett Titus, and Roppongi 3K, as they're now known. And, he knew what was at stake, and he knew where he fit into that picture and how he wanted to kind of guide where he wanted to go. So, with not only as the quote unquote host of Ring of Honor, does there come the responsibility of leading the television broadcast, but it also has that little extra responsibility of sort of coaching and making sure anybody who's on the production sheet to do commentary with you is ready to go. And we've had a lot of really pleasant surprises. I mean, I think everybody kind of would be cast as great interviews, but we've had guys like QT Marshall step in, do some of our Women of Honor Wednesdays, some of our Future of Honor Fridays. He's been terrific. We've had, you know, a number of guys. Obviously, Jay Lethal is a great talker. He's been great on commentary, and the world champion Cody has been excellent. But the one guy that doesn't get enough credit is BJ Whitmer, and BJ is a guy that he. Obviously, over a decade of experience in Ring of Honor, she's traveled the globe, really representing Ring of Honor now for, I think, the greater part of the last 13, 14 years, and just fantastic at commentary. And you know, he provides a level of detail as if he is in the ring, which is a little bit different than Colt. So if you listen to Colt and I, it may sound like we're two friends or two pals talking about wrestling, and then I think you get a different feel with BJ and he was in the ring trying to almost strategize what he might do next. So I think he's very underrated. But yeah, I've kind of learned from example back to your original question, and maybe one or two examples where, you know, maybe I personally could have done a little bit better job getting this person ready to go to call the match. So it's happened, but I take the blame on myself, and now have learned to really get those folks up to speed, especially when we have guests.
Oftentimes, any announcer really has additional duties. I know Josh Matthews does a ton of different stuff at Impact. Michael Cole helps bring up and helps produce stuff in WWE. I know Joey Styles did a bunch of stuff in ECW. Is announcing strictly what you do, or do they have you contribute in other ways as well?
I do produce a lot of the web content right now. That's a role that I started to start in. You know, when I first started, I do produce a lot of the web articles. I write those. You know, I love to write. I love to contribute in that way. You know, I do have a little bit of a hand in some of the videos that you might see. Very minimal though, on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Ring of Honor. So in those ways, you know, I'm not as involved as maybe peak Joey Styles was in ECW, or maybe current Jeremy Borash. But, you know, I certainly, you know, Ring of Honor is great. It's a family environment. All ideas are welcome. So, you know, I think you'd be surprised to hear maybe who's involved in terms of everybody kind of having a say in the direction of where they're going. And, you know, it's a great environment to foster that creativity. Some of our best television and some of our best pay-per-view events were in large part driven by the and Ring of Honor and how nice of a creative environment it is. And I think the big example to not leave you hanging is, of course, Adam Page, who mysteriously disappeared and then returned back from seemingly the dead, bound at Death Before Dishonor. So,
I love the integration of being the elite. Like, Ring of Honor recognized what was hot and they decided to roll with it. I thought that was really good stuff.
Well, and I'll say this about Nick and Matt Jackson and Cody and Marty and Adam and Brandy. They, you know, the whole being the elite group, even Mr. and Mrs. Jackson. You know, they always let me know when there's a new one. And I have that alert set on my phone, I think like everybody else, to tell me when there's a new YouTube video. So I make sure I hit that and make sure I see it right away. But again, I think one of the ways Ring of Honor can continue to grow because, you know, Bullet Club, they have their merchandise in Hot Topic. Why not talk about that? You know, Being the Elite is a big time web series. Why not talk about all the folks that are watching that? We have this great relationship with New Japan, with CMLL, with Rev Pro. When our stars compete there, we want to make sure we're getting content on our websites, on Twitter, on Instagram, on things like that, to really highlight that, hey, our stars are competing around the world, and in a lot of cases, winning big-time matchups. For instance, Flip Gordon, he pinned Ultimo Guerrero just a few weeks ago at the CMLL anniversary show. He just outright legend. Matt Taven went 7-2 in CMLL. So we wanted to make sure that we highlighted that on the website and across our social platforms. So, for us, I think the relationship is great, but for me and for a lot of the other folks within Ring of and really show our fans that everything that happens in the world of wrestling, it matters, especially when it comes to our partners, CMLL, New Japan, and Rev Pro.
How does one train to become an announcer? I know you had an interesting arc and how you got involved, and I know the Monster Factory was involved too. I feel bad that you ever had to deal with Danny Cage, but I'm interested to hear the story.
Oh, I love Danny, actually. I might be...
He's okay. He's okay.
Yeah, Danny's a good guy. He's a little tough. It's like tough love, like fatherly love. And, of course, Larry Sharp as well. But Danny, I love Danny. So it's interesting. I always prepared, and I don't know if this was just a function of my guidance counselors that I had in middle school and high school, but I always prepared as if I would never be very supportive teachers that said, if you want to do this, it's unlikely, but here's how we think you can do it. Go to a school with a good broadcasting or communications program. Work your butt off and try and get as many repetitions as possible. When you get out of school, take whatever job you can and just continue to try and climb the ladder until you get a different opportunity. And then I had guidance counselors that said, well, that's not possible at all. You really don't want to do that. You really want to make sure you have a double backup plan, because that's never going to work. So what I did, I went to school for media communications broadcasting at NYU. While I was there, I was cast on an MTV special my first week with Bill Gates. So I thought, this is going to be really easy. I got this. I got it. It's this easy. I just walk in, I get on MTV. It's fine. It didn't turn out that way. There's about a 4-year dark period where I didn't do any TV commercials, anything. I got out of school, I graduated, went to the University of Pennsylvania for a master's degree in, of all things, education management. I got out, I did a public access show, and that's where I actually started to learn the nuts and bolts of putting things together and just some of the outside periphery things that were really important in production. And that was Hump Night with Chris Freed. Our largest viewing audience was in the Lehigh County State Prison in Pennsylvania. So we had an interesting viewing segment, because it was the only channel that they got. But from there, I started writing for PhilliesNation.com. We started to do a video blog, a vlog, which turned into a public access show on the same channel on Service Electric, which turned into a cable show. I did that for about 3 years, and eventually, toward the end of the run, that. And then my second year into the Phillies show, we did a segment on famous Phillies fans, and I interviewed Blue Meanie at the world famous Monster Factory. And I asked Danny Cage, hey, if my friend wanted to be a wrestling broadcaster, how would he go about it? What would he do? And so, Danny gave me a straight answer, and this is the advice I'd give to everybody. He said, your friend would show up in a suit, and your friend would learn how to break down, set up the ring. Your friend would learn everything that goes on in at a wrestling event, whether it's selling tickets, whether it is setting up chairs, whether it's timing, production, all that fun stuff. And from there, maybe your friend will get some opportunities. So I did that for about 4 or 5 months. And from there, I started interviewing people in the ring. Our ring announcer went AWOL, so I became the ring announcer for a little bit. And then I started calling matches over YouTube. From there, I met Brutal Bob Evans, who but it was Kevin. And so, and then mysteriously it was Kevin Kelly who showed up in the Monster Factory. And Kevin said, hey, guy in a suit, stand up and sell me some tickets. He got 60 seconds. So I stood up and I ran through the night's events, hit my timing, and he said, okay, do it again. And I did it again. From there, I was invited to a Ring of Honor tryout camp. And then from there, I started calling the Future of Honor matches and Women of Honor matches. So it was kind of quick. It was really quick. After 4 years of doing nothing, all of a sudden I'm in the periphery of the second biggest wrestling organization in the United States. And then only a year and a half after that, I started to call full live events. From there, it was only another year before I became the host of Ring of Honor Wrestling. So it has moved very fast, and it's really exciting to know that I probably have less than 250 or now professional. So for me, that's really exciting because that motivates me to know, I'm a big believer in the 10,000 hours. You could become an expert in something if you put in 10,000 hours. And to know that I haven't even reached probably a half of 1,000 is really exciting, because that means I have so much more room to grow, and so much room to develop the relationship with our Ring of Honor audience and to become the best wrestling broadcaster I can.
So the Ring of Honor tryout, we've heard how tryouts work for wrestlers and things like that. We've never really heard how a tryout works, or the tryout camp works for an announcer. What was that process like?
So it's pretty unique for announcers. It's something where it's by invitation only. So with the wrestlers, applicant, if you have X amount of years experience, usually it's 3 to 5 or above 3. Sometimes they waive it if you're kind of a blue chip like Flip Gordon was, or even Leo Rush when we signed him. Usually that's the criteria. Send in some footage, provide some references, that sort of thing. For announcers, it's kind of by invitation only. So we had a fellow named Nick Lendl come in from Pittsburgh, very good ring announcer. We knew that Bobby Cruz had some family commitments coming up, and we knew that there might be an opportunity for a ring announcer. So by referral, we had Nick, who had a lot of good praise, referred to us, and we invited him to come to the camp. So we've had a few come through, myself being one of them. My former partner Matt Ryan had come through that process, as well as Nick. So it's different might do if you're an announcer at a tryout camp. I'll use mine as an example. All of the wrestlers are sort of coached by whoever the lead announcer is. In this case, now it's me. But previously, it was Kevin Kelly. It was usually Kevin Kelly, Adam Cole, and Bobby Fish. Now it's usually a combination of myself, Jay Lethal, and BJ Whitmer. So what we ask is that they cut a 60-second introductory promo about themselves, and something that might air on Ring of Honor television. And so if they're able to do that, we give them some pointers, and then we go for round 2. And then the next day, we ask them to cut an interview that would air on the very last piece of television before a major pay-per-view. For announcers, it's a little bit different. We sometimes ask them to run down the upcoming card so that we know that they have some knowledge. They know our wrestlers. Sometimes we ask them to sort of do cold interviews where we give them a topic. We give them about 30 seconds. We give them a wrestler who's attending the camp, and then we ask them to go ahead and do the interview kind of on the spot. So those are some of the things that we might ask them to do. Also, at the end of every camp, sometimes we'll do matches. We'll sometimes have the announcers that have come in, that have been referred to us for the tryout, conduct pre-match interviews with some of the contestants, the contestants, the wrestlers. So, it does vary camp to camp. But the announcer part, I've had a lot of people ask me, it is invitation only. Usually it's when we're looking for someone to add to our bench, or somebody to kind of step up into a role, like you might see Nick in the next couple weeks, where he may be filling in for Bobby Cruz on some of our shows.
And finally, before we go, Ring of Honor has this great connection with New Japan, and New Japan has kind of made their own foray into the States. How do you think that will affect things, or do you think it will? Because it's not like they're running often, but they've made it known they want to run in the spring. But they're doing like a whole lot of shows with Ring of Honor. It's to the point to where when I think Ring of Honor and New Japan, I almost just assume everybody belongs to both promotions at this point, because it's like you can catch so many different talent on each one.
Yeah, it's been an amazing benefit, and I love the folks at New Japan. I love the folks at Ring of Honor. It's really cliche, but the winners here are the fans. We're able to bring Kenny Omega in for all 4 events, all 4 Global Wars events coming up. That's Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Columbus, and Chicago. He's part of the double main event in Chicago, which will be available on iPay-per-view on Sunday, October 15th. And, Ring of Honor is the only place in America Ring of Honor is the only place in America you can see Will Ospreay on pay-per-view, IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion. In fact, Ring of Honor is the only place, period, in America that you can see Suzuki-gun, Minoru Suzuki, Killer Elite Squad. So it's just been such a benefit to our fans that we're able to find great athletes in the United States and Canada. Guys like Punishment Martinez, like Flip Gordon, like TK O'Ryan and Vinny Marseglia, some of these new upcoming talents. Jonathan Gresham, who was probably the world's best kept secret on the independents for quite some time. If it wasn't him, it was Chucky T, who we also have now in Ring of Honor. So we have this great combination of young upcoming stars, and we have this great influx of talent every few months from New Japan. And it's really been cool too, because, for instance, yesterday, the American Nightmare, the ROH World Champion, able to carry the Ring of Honor World Championship belt into Japan. So it's beneficial for both parties because Ring of Honor is getting exposure in New Japan. New Japan's getting exposure here with Ring of Honor in the United States. And I think our goals work very similarly, New Japan and Ring of Honor. I think there's great synergy there. I think it's allowed us to build and promote events that you could only find in Ring of Honor. And, whether it's the Global Wars Tour coming up or even Supercard of Honor, which Hiroshi Tanahashi is going to be at, as well as some other big stars you'll find out soon on ROHWrestling.com. It's such a relationship that suddenly we've gone from, in some major markets, getting 600 fans through the door, 800 fans, 1,000, to now all of a sudden in Chicago, 2,600 fans bought tickets. You take it to Supercard of Honor. Last year, Lakeland, Florida, 3,600, our biggest crowd ever. This year, we're aiming a little bit higher. We're going for a building that normally seats 10,000 for a basketball configuration, a little bit less than that, when you include our stage setup and whatnot. But the floor's already sold out. The floor sold out almost before the tickets for the general public went on sale. So it's kind of incredible. The relationship with New Japan really benefits Ring of Honor in a way that allows us to grow. And I think you may have heard my son Zach just there. He said hi. But the relationship really helps Ring of Honor grow long term, as well as New Japan grow long term. So I think everybody's excited about that. And just an interesting stat for you as we head to Global Wars. Ring of Honor is 43-44-1 in direct head-to-head competition with New Japan stars. So our balance is Good Japan stars as well, and they're 13-5 in title matches. So in the Global Wars Tour coming up, this really shows you that Ring of Honor really brings it to these New Japan stars when they come over to the United States.
It didn't seem like that for a while. It seemed like New Japan was winning everything, like for a good solid 6 to 7 months. There were people even kind of questioning the partnership for a while. But it seems like it's worked out incredibly well, especially with the emergence of some of the – and some of these guys, like I'm wondering, like, well, how would you even quantify that? Because they're regulars in New Japan. They're regulars in Ring of Honor. And I like that. I love the integration of the two, to the point to where you've got a guy like Daniel Bryan posting things on Twitter. Oh, this is interesting. Stuff like that, like teasing. That can't hurt either.
You know what? Cody, and I'll take it back to Cody. Cody has been
brilliant the way he's marketed himself.
He's a guy that had this giant machine behind him and became a big star. I would argue he's even a bigger star now that he's jumped out of the machine and kind of created something all of its own and all unique and all his. And, I can't say too much about him engaging a former ROH world champion. as you may have noticed on some of our broadcasts, I don't want to get hit with one of those C&Ds either. However, you know, he is so creative. He's so clever. The Young Bucks are. That's just a brilliant partnership there. And, you know, those guys have brought so much visibility and so much attention to Ring of Honor. It's crazy. And it's, again, it's something organic. You know, it's not something where, you know, the Being the Elite stuff is just something that I happened to watch because I had been friendly with those guys and and have synergy because we know our fans. You know, we have a ton of loyal fans, hundreds of thousands, and our fans are great because they consume each part of the product. And so it's our duty to really tie all those stories together because guys like Cody, guys like the Young Bucks, Marty Scurll, Kenny Omega, Adam Page, Brandy Rhodes, those guys are all working to do it on their part. So it's our duty as Ring of Honor to really keep that up as well.
Well, Ian, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Of course, we encourage our viewers to watch all the Ring of Honor programming. I don't know by the time they hear this part of the interview if it'll be Global Wars or any upcoming tour, but they can also catch Ring of Honor TV weekly. I love that you all put that on your website as well. There's no reason for anybody to not catch that show now. No,
I mean, it's on ROHWrestling.com. It's on all Sinclair. It's on large like, and I might get in trouble for this because I know we like to send people to our own website, but I like, you know, I got a good friend Mike who runs FightTV. Fight.tv. And the Fight TV app is awesome, and I hop in the chat room from time to time. It makes it so easy. You can watch on your iPad, you can watch on your iPhone, your Android, and you can stream it. You can Chromecast it, so you can watch it live Mondays at 7 p.m. or you can push it right to your Chromecast. And I understand now that there's some Roku capability as well. So if you have a Chromecast or a Roku, you can watch Ring of Honor anytime you want on Fight.tv. So a lot of great ways to watch it. Like you said, there's no excuse. And, you know, I'm excited for the Global Wars Tour. You know, it's going to be the first time ever that ringside members are going to be able to live stream 2 live events. So Saturday in Pittsburgh, we're going to be at Stage AE at 7:30 p.m. bell time. And then we have a little bit of an earlier start in Columbus on Saturday, where it's being by Kushima. And then if this does air before October 15th, that's the big one. I believe it's the second largest crowd in Ring of Honor history, double main event. It's going to be Bullet Club versus Search and Destroy, 8-man tag team. And of course, the very first United States title defense, where Kenny Omega, the Cleaner, defends against a man who's beaten him before, Yoshihashi, at Chicago's Frontier Fieldhouse. So, you know, we're really looking forward to this. And I'm hoping by the end of the weekend, that 43-44-1 record, I'm hoping that one game under 500 turns into maybe one over 500 in the 12 head-to-head bouts that we'll see at Global Wars.
Also, I think it speaks volumes that Sinclair owns all these channels, but is still willing to put Ring of Honor on Fight on the website, things like that. It's not just all their channel. It shows that they really do care about the health of Ring of Honor. It's not just something in the back of their mind. But Ian, I want to thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me, Sean.
Take care.
Thanks.